afternoon. Thank you everybody for joining us today for What Does Good Look Like for FirstService Residential and our developing partners. So my name is Christy Rosap. I oversee and am responsible for the operations in Austin, San Antonio, El Paso, and our Texas coastal regions. I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years, basically having my experience built with developer experience, and I've been an executive with FirstService Residential for 12 years. My expertise is in project management, development of new communities, and relationship building, as long as strategic planning. Our next panelist is going to be Tanya Mendenhall. Tanya leads our consulting across Texas. She's worked with master plan developers for the last 10 years. Her expertise in community layout and amenity planning and connectivity, as well as relationship building and just making sure that your community feels like home. Tim Mills, as a general manager, brings over 25 years of leadership and management experience. He served as a senior associate manager, a portfolio manager, and is now a general manager here at FirstService Residential. And then we have Paige Austin. She's the lifestyle manager for Harvest at Hillwood, and it is a national award-winning lifestyle manager. Congratulations, Paige. She brings 20 years of experience in partnership building, high-level event planning, marketing, program development, and implementation of your community. She's an expert in creating community culture, content general, and engagement for social media platforms. And then Leah Burton. Leah is a member of Steptoe & Johnson in the Plano office. She's a board certified in Property Owners Association law and a member of the board of directors for CAI and the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. She serves as general counsel to property owners associations, including but not limited to single-family communities, master plan communities, and condominium regimes, and aspects of corporate governance, including governing document creation, as well as alternative dispute resolution. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. So what we're going to do is ask a few questions to the panelists, and then at the end, we're going to have some Q&A, and then it's just going to be an organic conversation. Anybody's going to be able to ask questions and participate at the end. So Tanya, why don't we start with you? I would say the vision and success of a community starts before concrete is even in the foundation of the earth. And immediate engagement from legal representatives and management experts are essential pieces, I feel, planning the layout of a community. How has building this great relationship from the early onset contributed to bringing communities to life, and what components do you feel are necessary for those developers?
Thank you so much, Christy. Well, you said it all beautifully. I don't have anything else to say. No. It's so interesting because I feel like even when I started in consulting with FirstService, like 10 years ago, oftentimes developers would look up, they're getting ready to have their first closing with an owner, and they're like, oh, wait, we need to have management. And things would happen, and we'd get in there and we're like, okay, you don't have any storage in your amenity, or the bathrooms, aren't connected to anything. There are all these things that would happen. And we started working with developers very early on to show them that they have great partnerships. So they are partnering with landscape architects. They're partnering with site planners. They're partnering with legal. They're partnering with amenity architects. And they have all these great ideas. And they need to be able to live throughout the life of the association. So oftentimes, the great ideas don't necessarily translate well once you have homeowners there that are actually using it. I was just at a planning charrette this week for 3 days, and it was so fascinating because the land planners and the architects had these great ideas. We're going to have these big ponds, and we're going to have kayaks and paddle boards and canoes that the residents can just take out into the lake. And I said, golly, that is such a great, fun thing. I said, so when the teenagers bail out of that kayak in the middle of the lake, who goes to get it? And they were like, do they do that? Like, look at Paige, look at everybody on the screen going, yes, they do. So I said, what if we built them a storage place that could have fob access, and they store their own equipment in there, and therefore they take their own equipment out on the lake and come back with it. And then the association isn't responsible, and the association doesn't have to get insurance for water things, toys. And, it's one of those things that those of us that work in associations day in and day out understand what it takes to be successful. Because you know what we want? We want people to want to move in to your community. And what makes that happen? The beautiful amenities that you've put in, the beautiful landscape that you've put in, but with expert budgeting so that we know what is it going to cost to run this association, with expert management. That's where Tim comes in. What does it take really to manage an association, lifestyle, and then understanding what great looks like from day one so that you're planning for it. Did that answer it in 700 sentences or less?
Definitely. Now, Leah, that would kind of relate to where you would come in, because from a legal perspective, what are the critical components for developers to consider when selecting not only the preferred management company, but the legal liaison? And what challenges have you encountered when these partnerships aren't stabilized from the beginning?
So I will say that there is real value to be found in being involved at the ground level of a project, and from the perspective of management, legal, development. So you are forming that team right there at the start. And almost like in corporate America, when you sit down and you have a strategic planning session, you do the same thing when you're developing one of these master plan communities. So when you develop the team, you got your legal, you got your management, you got your development, and you establish a vision for how you see this community playing out from every perspective that Tanya just mentioned, the lakes, the kayaks, the hiking trails, the lagoon. You develop this team feeling, and when everyone is involved at that ground level, everyone becomes invested in the success of the project. And so it's almost like there becomes like this emotional attachment that everyone has to seeing this project play out to completion and to ultimate success. And so when I am advising and looking at these types of projects and considering who the management piece, the legal piece, you really want to look at and find someone that has the experience, obviously, the reputation for being able to start from finish, bring it home, the manpower, and even the bandwidth to handle the project. I've seen communities where management did not have all their systems in place. They didn't have designated individuals who handled different pieces. People tried to wear too many hats, and everyone has their role to play. And so what I love about FSR is that they understand that everyone has their role to play. And so there are specific positions that just address those types of issues. So you've got your general manager, Tim has his role to play. Tanya has her consulting role to play. And because all of these individuals are so sophisticated and experienced, you're able to have that trust in them to have your project succeed. And at the end of the day, everyone wants to look good. Developer wants to look good, management wants to look good, legal wants to look good. And if you have a good management company that knows what they're doing, it's going to make the developer look good. And vice versa. And what you don't want, because where I oftentimes hear complaints is, oh, there wasn't transparency. No one knows what's going on. No one calls us back. The developer never has any meetings. What's happening? If you have a management in place that is helping guide development and scheduling those meetings and helping aid the developer with maybe things that you as a developer hadn't thought of. I mean, that's where their experience comes in. That's where legal experience comes in. Oh, well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Development, you have your role to play, which is developing the community, and you need to have management that knows what they're doing to help you in your ultimate goal. And development companies, sometimes get a bad rap. Homeowners are upset sometimes, and it really all comes down to who is on the ground level communicating with those members. Mm-hmm. When I hear complaints, it's that we can't get in touch with anybody. We don't know anything that's happening. When you have management who's there on site and providing those services to the membership, you're not getting those types of complaints. It's when you can't find anybody and things are happening, there are maintenance issues that need to be addressed and no one's around. That's when you start to have problems. That's when you start to get those homeowner uprisings. And you just, nobody wants that. And I get involved at that place sometimes. And it's just really, really unfortunate. Have I exceeded my time? I feel like I'm talking quite a bit.
There's no time limit.
Okay, I will stop, but I will stop with this thought. When it comes to the governing documents, you, and I'm sure most of the attendees on this webinar are fully aware of what goes into and what is involved in the creation of your governing documents for your community. Where I like to come in is at that ground level where I'm the one drafting those documents, because what happens a lot is someone else has drafted them. They're super complicated. They're convoluted. They're way longer than they need to be. The developer has paid like so much money for them. And then I have to come in and deliver the bad news that they don't necessarily contain provisions that they should, that perhaps the person or firm that drafted those original documents didn't realize that the law had changed. And so some of these things don't apply anymore. And so I don't like to have to course correct, because it wastes time, it wastes money, and that money can be better spent other places. On kayak storage.
And I think what's good to remember is that not every community is the same. There's no cookie cutter. So when developing those, it's important to understand from the beginning what the expectation was. And just a quick question to go back to that, when we talk about how important that is, Tanya, why is forward planning so important when you take into consideration those documents and that budget? Because that kind of leads into what Leah was talking about.
You know, understanding the long-term budget, we will produce we call it a project life budget, because the developer year one, you know, clearly understands that there's probably going to be some subsidy from them. You know, it just depends on how many homes you sell year one for people to start paying into that association. But the developer wants to know, okay, at what point in time after full build out am I not needed anymore to supplement? And, you know, I think that's when developers do the happy dance, because they're not having to supplement at all. And so what we do is go in from the very beginning at full staff. You know, this is what your association will need at full staff down the road to fully manage this association. Does there need to be a maintenance person, a porter, a GM, a lifestyle, an AGM? It just depends on your number of rooftops. But we work with the developers early on. What is your vision for this community? And you know, the biggest differentiator, I would say, every developer wants to build that community that's going to set it apart. You know, I listen all the time. This is our differentiator. This is our differentiator. You know, there's just so many builders out there, and they're building essentially the same footprint of a house, maybe with a different facade. So what makes someone want to buy in community A as opposed to community B from the same builder? Well, we have found it's the way that community looks and feels. It feels like home. And we help the developers early on with all of that, but also understanding what is it going to cost to make that happen. And that's when we roll into that staff.
And that's perfect, because when I think of saying to people what makes us different, I always, do you have a Paige Austin? Do you have a Tim Mills? No, you don't. Okay? You don't have those people. Okay. So Tim, that leads me into my question. As the general manager, you're responsible for managing all the assets of an association, as long as just being that conduit between the developer as well as, you know, homeowner board members, residents, third-party contracts, and concepts such as aiming high and owning it and doing what's right are the core values of our business and what we live by here at FirstService. How would these concepts help you to elevate service levels and protect the integrity of an association?
Okay, for starters, let's back up a little bit. Leah had said something which I found a very powerful statement. And I feel like from a general manager standpoint, emotional attachment, to me, that was very powerful, because again, you're working with developers on all sorts of levels. And as a developer, your goal is to create a legacy. And so you want that, you want to be able to drive through the community 10, 15 years from now and say, I built this. This is what I've left this behind, and look how great it is. And so by bringing in FirstService, again, we look at and we make sure we're hiring and training the best associates to represent those developers, whether it's a developer board or it transitions to a homeowner board. The goal is to make sure that the community lives, breathes, and thrives long after the developer has transitioned out. And that's kind of where I feel like, from a FirstService standpoint, they give me that responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. I manage the communities, any community that I've ever managed, I manage it like I live there. I don't live there, but I manage it like I do. And so I'm not the first guy to go out and spend a significant amount of money on things that I could maybe, I can find a vendor that might be able to provide something that's a little less expensive, but it's going to get us the same results. And the goal is to be, that financial responsibility is key, specifically for me, because at some point in a community where I might have an assistant GM, or I might have somebody that does other responsibilities, at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to go to the developer, the board, or otherwise, and explain to them, this is why we're spending the money the way we are. Or being able to go the other direction and say, this is how I've saved money, to make sure that we still check all the boxes that the developer wants to for the community, but we've been able to reduce those costs. And again, when you bring in a team such as FirstService, we take that and we run across that finish line. We don't just kind of limp through that first 80 yards. We ensure that we're going to be there long term as well. So the goal from my point of view, whether it's day one or day whatever 10 years is to make sure that, do my quick math, is to make sure that relationship is built, and that there's still that benefit of having FirstService be that management company for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
That's impactful. That's a drop mic statement right there, Tim. And I think part of that essentially comes back to the tools, the communication, transparency. So what tools do you utilize to ensure what exceptional customer service and elevated communication looks like? Because I think that really is the foundation for building that strong relationship. And you've been so successful at that here at FirstService.
Yeah. Well, for starters, answer your phone, answer emails, be timely at it. There are expectations of getting a customer or responding to a homeowner in a timely manner. Their expectations might be a little bit outside of what should be the norm, but you do your best to respond to them quick, fast, and in a hurry. We use Connect. Connect is our proprietary software that allows a new homeowner to come in. We have all of their pertinent information right off the bat, so we can communicate with them, whether it's an email blast, whether it's a communication from the general manager, lifestyle, or otherwise. We've got the new program, which is the MMS software. So it helps us create a meeting management packet, and it's going to stay consistent. It's going to be, there's some interactiveness with it. There's no extra cost, but it allows me then to create the same agenda. So there's consistency when it looks like that. You've got the ability to, if the developer wants to put in, say, they've got a nice picture of the community, or they've got the logo for the community, we can do all of that so that when we're posting that information, providing it to the developer, posting it for homeowners to review, they're not searching out and having to read through just multiple pages of poor communication, I guess is the best way to put it. It helps us simplify it, but it helps us also get the message across. We've got that. Then we've got, oh boy, yeah. We've got another program with vendor management. So we make sure we vet all of our vendors in such a way that We don't want to bring a vendor on that, you know, may not have the proper insurance, which then exposes the community to a potential lawsuit. So we set a high bar through our vendor management process, the way we vet those vendors, to make sure that they will always be the vendor that we want them to be, because the last thing we need is for a vendor to come on property, create an issue, and now you've exposed the developer, the community, to some significant type of lawsuit.
That's great. I know we always hear that your boots on the ground, and whether you're a general manager or you're here in the office in a portfolio aspect, being boots on the ground is really what is important. Being able to say, yes, I've had eyes on the community. I understand what's going on. These are the things that I've noticed. This is what I'm recommending to you, because I do think that's important to give the recommendation, especially because we are the experts in so many levels. And then knowing when to reach out to those experts, such as Leah, to be like, hey, we need help. Can you justify this? What are we looking at to minimize that liability to the developers, especially when they're building that community? So Paige, another strong asset to the company and just your expertise, lifestyle has really become one of the key factors when potentially buying in a community. It's no longer just, I need a home. It's like, I'm going to raise my family. I want a sense of belonging. They want to feel connected. I hear everybody use the word inspired and so many different aspects of what you do. And that's amazing when you talk about resort living and just the experiences. Could you share with us some of those, how impactful lifestyle can be to developing communities, and what factors go into building? I don't want to say what good looks like, because with you, it's what great looks like. So what does that look like for you?
Well, really quick, what Tanya's talking about, project life budget. I think there's definitely a few ways that developers bring in lifestyle, right? They pay for it out of pocket, and when the developer leaves, lifestyle leaves, right? And you bait and switch sort of thing. And then there's the sustainable part, and I think that's I'm part of a sustainable solution, and I think FirstService would like to focus on that, because that's really where you get the most bang for your buck, and it's incorporating your lifestyle into your life budget, so that so for example, I think the property that I'm with, like over the last 4 years, so we're completely HOA budget supported, and that's great, right? Because that means when the developer leaves, the community gets to experience the life that they moved in there for. And I think that's very important to have a sustainable program. Even if you have to pay out of pocket in the beginning, the ROI is just amazing, because you have someone on site from day one casting the vision. Like developers can create great communities and have great dreams and aspirations by how they develop their park and trail systems and the great amenities that they offer. But if they don't have someone there to activate it and bring it to life, you have no idea if your actual vision is going to come to life, because you don't have anyone there to do it. You're assuming people who move in will just automatically, naturally be best friends and hold hands and walk down the street together. And that doesn't happen. People pull in the driveway, they go in their garage, and they go in their house. They're tired from work, and they don't want to be out. That's the norm for them. But when you pull into a neighborhood that has a lifestyle, that's active, that's got that culture, it's a culture that we build. People don't want to just go into their driveway in their house. They want to say hi to their neighbor on the street. They see a family taking groceries out of the car. Hey, do you need help? It's a family. You take a neighborhood and we actually make it a family. And that's really important for lifestyle, because the lifestyle manager on the ground knows the families, knows the people, can help connect you to people in your same season of life, or your same stage of life. And that's just very important. That's how you build that sense of belonging, that sense of togetherness. It's how you bring those amenities to life, and it's a very valuable piece. And when we surveyed new homeowners moving in, like, what made you choose, a neighborhood, this neighborhood, they all will say the lifestyle, the programming, the sense of community, the sense of belonging. Well, that is a direct result of lifestyle programming. It has nothing to do with the amenities and the builders, right? It's that lifestyle programming that activates it and really connects people. And so budgeting for that, planning for that, again, in the beginning, you're paying ROI, right? You're paying out of pocket until you have the homeowners to sustain that, but it's worth it, because it's a selling point. It's actually an amenity. Your lifestyle program, your lifestyle director on site, that's an amenity, right? It's just a person, not a physical structure. And so, and helping with communications, how we work with the GMs, you don't want the person who has to write violations and say no to be the same person that says, hey, come out for a barbecue, or hey, do you want to volunteer? Yeah, no, I don't want to talk to you just from a violation because my grass isn't cut. It's very important to have that separate house. I'm on the east side of the house and he's on the west side of the house, right? And so I don't ever have to say no. I'm the fun person. That the lifestyle is the fun. It's we want to know you, we want to gather, but I'm also the softer voice of the HOA. The HOA will create rules and homeowners don't understand them. And so my role is to help them understand at a casual event. They're talking about something like, well, actually, this is why, and actually saves you money for this, this, and this. And they're like, wow. Now GM has sent that same information in the email and has pushed that information out. But because I can say it in a way that they can hear it, it helps the HOA. And so it's a very great partnership between the lifestyle and the GM, because we communicate. I communicate through social media. I communicate through meeting people at the events, talking to people, and I can help them understand the bigger picture, because everyone just sees the small picture in front of them. And so I help them see the bigger picture in a very sociable way. And so it's a very important role, I think. We're not just party planners. We are culture creators. We're memory makers. We're communicators. We're counselors. We're mentors. We wear so many hats, and it's a very important job. And I think FirstService values that and has implemented that very well across multiple properties.
This is going to be, thank you so much, Paige. This will be a question really for Tim, Tanya, Paige, or Leah. When you think from a developer's perspective, sometimes the cost, because there is a cost involved with making sure that we're doing the budget properly up front, that we're not just doing one phase, or that we're getting legal involved to write those documents, or we're hiring the general manager ahead of time, or the lifestyle manager ahead of time. What benefits will that bring to them selling homes? Because that's important. Like, they want to sell homes. That's what they're there for. They want to bring and have the vision come to life. But what benefit do they have from doing that from day one? Day one, when the concrete goes in.
I will start, and then I'm going to pitch it over to Paige because I want her to tell a story. It is so incredibly vital to have this team from day one because of the vision that gets cast. But we are a partner. We are a partner with the developer. And no, we are not sales people for the homes. We are a equal opportunity lover of all builders. But people come to the HOA and ask questions, and they come to the HOA to find out information about the community. Paige, for you to tell the story about how your social media has impacted sales in a community.
Well, having an on-site lifestyle manager, that person is obviously gregarious person, but someone who's a communicator who understands marketing, who understands social media platforms. So we actually take that responsibility from the developer if they give it to us, which makes sense because we're on site, we're on the ground, we're posting real life stuff. And so my approach to social media has been like, people get sold to all the time, right? They're getting sold to by their realtor, by the builders, by all these other things. Why don't we show them what life is like here? Yeah, but why don't we show the authentic, organic stuff? And so posting pictures of residents and events. And so I do a lot of that. I do a lot of live videos. All the pictures on social are real neighbors enjoying their community, enjoying their amenities. And I have people that follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and X and Snapchat and Threads, all of the platforms that we use. But it's really great when I meet new homeowners and they're like, oh, we live in Phoenix and we were following your page for 6 months and we just could not wait to join the Harvest family. Like, it looked amazing. Like, I could not wait for my kids to experience that life. I couldn't wait to make those memories with my family. And so we bought a house sight unseen. We got on, we picked a builder, we picked a home, and we bought it, and we moved here, and we knew we'd love it because of your social media. And I've heard that countless times, again, like people following us on Instagram and Facebook. And what's great is that they feel like they know me. They're like, they come to events, they look for me, like, hi Paige, how are you? I know you don't know me, but I've been following you for 6 months and I know everything about you, and your dog is so cute. And and so I'm able to connect with them personally from the minute they arrive here and be like, oh my goodness, have you met the Connor family? They have a boy who plays baseball, same age, and he goes to Argyle. Let me introduce you, or whatever it may be. And I'm able to help them get connected and meet their best friends, and from immediately from their first few hours in the neighborhood. And that's just so rewarding to see. But I love that they respond to social media, and they respond, what we do is, like Tina said, we're not salespeople. And I always have to tell, builders will bring their prospects to us to talk about the community and life and HOA. And I have to say multiple times, I don't get commission if you live here. I'd be a very wealthy person if I did, but I do not receive commissions. I'm just very passionate about what I do. And I think it's that passion, like Tim said, we act like we live here. We love the communities that we manage. We love the people. And so it can sound like a sales pitch, and but it's not. And I think prospects love that, and we're not shy. We're like, go look at other properties. Ask them about lifestyle. What does it look like there? Ask these questions. I guarantee you will not get the same answers that you do here. And 9 times out of 10, they come back and they're like, yeah, this is the place where you need to be. And so it's just being that valuable tool, understanding the marketing piece, but also making it authentic, because authenticity sells. And I think that's one of our big value adds, is that we're authentic people.
That's great. I love that. I think I had the pleasure recently of building a relationship with a developer here in Texas, and speaking with them, all they wanted was transparency. They wanted communication. And I think we take for granted sometimes the positive influence that just communication and transparency can have on a relationship. And when it comes to building trust and engagement with the residents and being boots on the ground, so to speak, with the developer, saying we are where we're going to be, and that we're going to do what we're going to do. And I think once you can do that and build that trust with a developer, that kind of bleeds over into the residents, and then feeling that sense of belonging, whether you're a large master plan community and you have a whole slew of staff on site supporting you. What you have with FirstService is you don't have an associate, you have associates. You have a team, and what that looks like, from the general manager to lifestyle to budgets to third-party vendors to just that expertise. And I think we learn that, and knowing that we send out constant communication. We're holding the town hall meetings. We're ensuring that we give that information ahead of time to developers so that they can be ready for when those tough questions come in during a meeting. So Tim, a question for you. How would you prepare for a meeting with a developer to make sure that when they walk into that board meeting that they're ready and prepared?
Well, before we go too far down that path, I think you had mentioned trust, Paige had mentioned trust. From a HOA management standpoint, it's not just having trust with the developer, but you build that trust with them, but then that bleeds over into trust with the homeowners. And so having that great relationship with both the developer, your board, and the homeowners allows you then to, we'll say, tie into or be plugged into any issues that might happen. I'm not a social media person. Paige is, and there's opportunities. I've been given information, Paige will say, hey, Tim, I'm on Facebook, or not on Facebook, excuse me. She's posted something about a community event, and excuse me, a homeowner then has instant messaged me or something and said there might be an issue. And so having Paige be my partner in crime of communicating that to me, then when it comes time to have a meeting with the board, or the board's going to have a meeting with homeowners, I'm always the one that's in the background, making sure that the board, the developer, they're prepared. They more than I'd rather over communicate and make sure that they know more than they need to know, so that if there's something that does come up. So if there's an issue with an intersection in a community, for example, I'm going to go out and make sure I got the pictures taken. I'm going to go out and make sure that there's any, let's look at the signage from which direction, whatever the issue is. I want to make sure that I've armed the developer, because if they're going to be standing in front of a group of homeowners who've invested a lot of money to live in that neighborhood, I want to make sure that the developer can provide their information, whether it's an answer, or at least they're not going into it blindly, not knowing or what's going on, so that they may not be able to have that problem fixed right away, but at least they know what's going on so that they can start going down that path while they're communicating with the homeowners. So having information, constantly, I send out GM newsletters, I send out email blasts, I try to get the homeowners to provide me, tell me everything. As I'm an on-site manager, my door's always open. We tell homeowners all the time, come in, and I have people coming in all the time telling me stuff. Some of those items are HO related, some of them are developer related, some of them aren't even either, they're city related. But as a developer, they need to know everything. Now, I don't need to tell them every sentence of the conversation that I've had with the homeowner, because now you're just slowing them down. But they need to have that higher elevation. They need that 20,000. Sometimes I drop down to 5,000, but they need to have that 20,000 foot information piece so that they can figure out what their next steps might be, if there are next steps. And so being a good communicator, having the confidence from the developer, the trust, making sure that they know that, I'm here for them, I'm here for the HOA, and I'm kind of the in-between guy, because I have to get the homeowners to come at me or talk to me about something, and then I have to kind of filter that over to the developer. The key is communication. And I mean, I can't say it enough times, it's communication. So making sure that they go in prepared is going to be paramount to their success.
And Tim's being modest. I mean, so trust, how do you build that trust? Knowing the developer and how they like to be communicated with, how much communication they want, what level of involvement they want. It takes getting to know them personally on a personal level, right? And so Tim does that, right? And I do that. We're texting them information, we're sending them an email, we're letting them know what's going on. I heard a great quote from a homeowner, so I texted to Angie, and she's like, "Oh, that's so great," letting them see their vision coming to life, right? Or there's an issue, like, "Hey Angie, I think this might be an issue, and oh God, we need to fix that. I didn't realize that was like that." Or, let me talk to the engineers, and let me talk to this, and we'll get that fixed. And so it's us peppering them with information, not just right before an annual meeting or before a meeting with the homeowner, but continuously giving them information and they want to be, every developer is different, right? But if you have a developer who wants to be involved in those things and wants to know what's going on, we're prepared to do that, and building those relationships with the developers to keep them informed as much as they want to be informed. And then that in turn gives trust. So Tim is comfortable making decisions because he knows, okay, that the developer is going to want this, because he knows what the developer wants. He knows he knows their expectations, and he knows when to bother them with information, and when not to bother them with information, and to give them a recap later. And it's because he knows them, and he only knows them because he invests in getting to know and building that partnership. And that's what we do. We build partnerships with our developers, and so that we can communicate how they want to be communicated to you. So that's just wanted to add that, Tim. You do a great job with that.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Jessica, I know that our time is getting to the 45-minute mark, and I wanted to make sure that because we can talk all day about benefits of partnership and relationships and the legal aspect of what that looks like. Are there actual questions forwarded in the chat, or some of those we could go through, or we can continue our chat?
Yes, we actually have a couple of questions.
Perfect.
First one I wanted to read out is, what is the minimum size community that is cost effective HOA fees to utilize the entirety of FSR services?
Great question. Tanya, you're probably saying something extremely smart. I see you talking.
It was profound, and that's all I have to say on the matter. Can you repeat that? I think what I heard was, what's the minimum size community that what?
That is cost effective, and then in parentheses, HOA fees to utilize the entirety of FSR services.
Well, I would say that when you hire FirstService, you get all of our services. If the question is, what's the minimum size to have sited staff? That's going to depend on the vision of the developer, and it's going to depend on the assessments. You don't have to have a 2,000 or even 1,000 home development to have sighted staff. But people also understand you get what you pay for. And maybe my assessments are a little bit higher, but oh my gosh, I've got a manager there 5 days a week. I actually have a lifestyle person. I know my neighbors. You know, it matters to me. There are some people that the association does not matter to them, and they literally just want to buy a house and move on. And there are communities that are built for them. You know, there's oftentimes we work with developers that say, you know what, really all I'm going to do is put in 3 pocket parks and I'm going to have landscaping. You know what? That's okay. That's fine. There are a lot of people that want to move into those communities. There also are a lot of people in the world today that are looking for community. They're looking for friends. You know, people are moving to Texas from all over the country. I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but people move here and they're like, okay, now what? You know, I don't know a soul. And that's when it's really important to have the investment in that sighted manager, that sighted lifestyle, somebody that's going to, we often say it, Paige and I talk about it all the time. Neighbors, strangers become neighbors, neighbors become friends, and friends become family. That's what it creates.
And to piggyback off that a little bit, it's not a cookie cutter, so to speak. So on the flip side of that, when you're talking about single family homes or talking about multifamily or condominium, we have communities that are 20 units and we have communities that are 10,000 units. And we have communities that are 20 units that are doing lifestyle, just not with an on-site staff member. And then it's with the management team. And then we have some that are 10,000 units that have, 30 associates on site. So it ranges. It also comes down to the relationship and the partnership, because I would hate to say, oh, our minimum is $1,500, but yet we have a longstanding relationship with a vendor, and then our services bring benefit and savings and costs overall to the association, such as FFI, working with our insurance, kind of providing the cost savings and just the knowledge that we would have. So I don't want to give a number, knowing that it could vary and the range is quite big. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you. Another question that came, and I believe someone might have addressed this, but what is the benefit of partnering with FSR to bring our vision to life?
Well, I would say early on, when we go in and from a consulting standpoint, the developers say, okay, here's what I want. Like I said, there may be a developer that comes in and says, I just want 3 pocket parks and some landscape. I don't even want holiday decor. Okay, great. We can make that happen. Here's how that looks. Here's what it looks like. And doing your project life budget, here's what it's going to cost you. Here's what you can expect. And then we have the developers that come in and they say, we want ours to be different. We want the differentiator. And that's when we say, okay, great. These are the amenities that are really working well. For example, those open air amenities right now are incredible. You've got some shade and shelter from the Texas heat. You put those big fans, you make sure you've got HVAC in the restrooms, you've got electricity so you can bring in bands. We go on and on. Paige can chime in with, okay, here's what I need. Here's what is needed to make this amenity successful. Tim can say, you know what, that looks really pretty, but the maintenance of what your architect has designed is going to be very expensive for the association. Sometimes they don't want to hear it, but in the long run, if it's going to be a best practice and save money, then that's what you want, because that developer doesn't want to be supplementing forever. They want to be able to say, okay, we created a successful association. They are self-sustaining. It's wonderful. I love Tim talked about legacy. We're going to see them across that finish line. We're going to partner with those developers so that the transition to homeowner control is smooth. I don't know if the developers that are with us today know this, but sometimes the residents would like to be mad at the developers. Well, it helps having look at Tim. It helps having that voice where we help people early on go, you know, the developer's not a bad guy. The developer is here to partner with you, and they want to build an association and build a community where people do the happy dance because they live there.
And sometimes the developer will have ideas, they want to do this, they want to do this based on the land or whatever. And when we're in the conversations early, we're like, oh, well then how are they going to do this? Or how are residents where are they going to park? Or what about this and this issue and this issue? And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And then they're like, okay, we need to reconfigure, or they're like, oh, well, we're fine with that. And, so it's our job. You pay us for our brains, right? So we're going to tell you the information. At the end of the day, our developer is who's in charge, right? And so we'll do whatever the developer wants us to do with a smile, and we'll make up a happy dance. But we want to make sure that we arm our developers with the best information possible based on our experience, because you might think this is great, it looks great, it's going to photograph well, it's going to win lots of awards because it's beautiful, but we can't use it, or it's going to get this or this is going to happen, this is not functional, this isn't ADA compliant, this is all these things that we see on the ground level. So we bring a different perspective, and I think when you're planning something to this magnitude and this cost, you want all the perspectives at the table so you can make the best decision. And so we see it how it actually gets used day to day, maintenance, the cost, and so we can add a lot of value in that front ends, the very front. So you're not going back and retrofitting things, spending way more money than you plan to, if you would have just had us from the ground level.
That's great. Thank you. Jessica, was there any other additional questions?
That was the last question, and we are out of time now.
Perfect.
So we're going to wrap up.
So on behalf of Tanya, Tim, Paige, Leah, myself, and all of FirstService Residential, thank you so much for joining today. We look forward to bringing your vision to life.